Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the show. We're here today with our Motivation and Mindset Monday, where we are going to be talking about the term of the monkey mind. It's something that all of us have. As humans, we're born with it, but the nice thing is that we can overcome it. So I want to go over what that is, what it may look like and mean to you on a daily basis, and where it originated. So when I was studying overseas, one of the nice things that I was able to do is actually come in contact with many other people outside of my context. We'll put it that way. So I met with many people that weren't living that Western-based lifestyle. For me, it was growing up, and it was maths and sciences and all of the analytics and, the statistics, those types of things. And a lot of times when you do go over to the East, as we'll call it, you start to learn about a different type of mindset. You start to learn about a different type of culture where things don't always have to be so fast-paced, where life doesn't have to be so overwhelming. And when I saw this, it was a clash with who I was. I mean, so much to the point that I can actually look back at one of the actual clinics I was at. This was the nicest of all the clinics that I was at. There was about, I would say, 200 patients there on a daily basis. It was a beautiful, I don't even know what you want to call it, an Ayurvedic retreat or clinic. And this was certainly by far and away one of the nicest places I've been to, somewhere on the so far opposite side, and I've talked about this before, but there was no running water. That was pretty unbelievable. So I've seen both sides of it. Both sides were beautiful in their own way. Of course, I didn't realize that and think it at the time for sure when I was on the other side of the spectrum. But I was at this retreat, and I would have to buy an internet card. And so essentially I would go there and I would buy it, and I'd be able to check in with everybody back home. And I was still basically, I was pseudo practicing overseas, doing internships. there was a lot going on at the time, and I needed to check in. And I was also, I don't even know, maybe 12 hours ahead or 10 hours ahead. So, I'm anxious. I'm looking to see what's going on back home with my wife, my family, my work, like everything. And nobody was available, for me to be able to purchase a card. And I wanted to be able to get in contact with people because I'm 10 hours ahead or 12 hours ahead, and I only had a certain amount of time. So that caused a lot of tension. And when the person finally got there, I was just saying, what's going on here? Why wasn't there anybody available? And I was in that Western-based mindset. And again, this is, I can't say that I'd be maybe different today. I would just hope that I would be, because I started to learn about these principles. So the person just looked at me and they were just kind of smiling. They just said, sorry, I was out. That was it. That was all the explanation that they gave me. And you know what? That was all they feel they had to give, because to them, it just wasn't that big a deal, that it didn't have to be at that moment. Not everything is a 5 alarm. Not everything, is an emergency. And so I started to see that. And again, I wasn't grasping it necessarily at that time, because I was also, I was working at that particular clinic easily 12 hours a day. And the breaks were basically just to have lunch, and you'd have your breakfast before, and then you'd have your dinner afterwards, which again was beautiful and it was great. And I learned a lot there. But I also got to attend classes, and they were typically around the 7 o'clock hour at night, maybe even later some nights, with Zen Buddhist monks. So I got to learn a little bit about meditation. I got to learn a little bit about different forms and practices of yoga and different variations of Qigong. And I had already started to practice those in my own life since about 2004. So for me, this was amazing. I got to learn with some of the people that are the masters of doing this. But one night there was a talk, and we sat in a meditation-based pose, and we got to listen to this Zen Buddhist monk give a talk on essentially mindfulness. And he started to talk about the monkey mind. And to me, it made perfect sense right off the bat. It really did. I'm like, well, that's what it seems like. It seems like I have a dozen, 24, sometimes 100,000 different monkeys inside my head, all jumping around, vying for attention. And again, that was something I needed to work on in order to really and fully heal and get well, was this monkey mind. So what the monkey mind comes from is actually all of those worries and thoughts and feelings and emergencies that you think are emergencies, all of the things that overwhelm you. I mean, it's said, and of course, I don't think that this could be exactly pinned down, but the average person has about 50,000 thoughts per day. 50,000 thoughts per day. And many of them are, I would say, looped. So they're around the same specific topics. I teach this, actually. I teach this now. I'm fortunate enough to be able to learn this and teach it inside of our IHP Mastery. And I'm teaching people to break those specific habit loops would start with a cue, or they start with basically a trigger, something in the mind, a thought, and then you keep playing that on a loop over and over and over. And then what does it do? Well, it leads to this feeling of anxiousness, of worry, of like, I have to get this done, when it may or may not be, but probably not, life and death. This is something, yes, it's a task that you need to do. So I'm going to share with you today some ways to quiet that monkey mind. But just to give credit always where credit's due, the Buddha, where Zen Buddhist monks first came up with this particular term, came from the Buddha himself. And essentially, what he was looking to do was say, how can I quiet my mind? That's what the Buddha was looking to do, and he would take time away from everyone in isolation. And he'd be looking for essentially peace, for clarity of mind, to improve his overall sense of calm, of well-being, to be happier in general, to be more present in that moment. And these are things that we all want, I think. There's certainly things that I want, and these are things that are achievable. The Buddha didn't have it in the very beginning either. If you know the Buddha's story, he came from all of that, I would say, anxiety and overwhelm, all the things that he was supposed to be, because he was in one of the higher classes of that society, and he left that for a different type of life. And I think it really lends us to believe that maybe we could leave whatever we're at right now, physically, mentally, emotionally, however we want to think about it. We don't even need to leave it in the physical-based realm, but we can leave a lot of that emotional-based baggage behind us, and that we can start a new life. Just last Sunday, I wrote in my email, I typically do one email a week to my newsletter list, and that's just at stephencabral.com. But what I do is I just try to give some thoughts about what I see going on. And one of those was perspective. And it's something that I talk about all the time. It's something that I wasn't born with, that I didn't necessarily feel I had growing up. But now as I've moved through life and I've tried to look more for introspection and really looked from outside of myself, which I'll be sharing with you, it began to get easier for me to see the error of my ways. And the error of my ways started with the error of my thinking, because my mind was always so cluttered. There was just a million things to do on the to-do list. And now it's not that there's any less things to do, but the way I think about them and the way I go about my life is now different. So what the Buddha did was he actually put a name to this, and it was called kapasita, and a beautiful word for just essentially referring to the busyness, the overwhelm, and the continuing of the monkeys jumping essentially from branch to branch in your mind, right? So you go from one thought to another thought to another thought, and then there's this other thought, and there's almost no time between thoughts, right? So what we're looking to do is create space between all of these thoughts, create space between worry. It's not that you'll never worry again. It's not that you'll never be anxious again, but really what we're looking for is this. Can there be more time between worry? Can there be more space between your worry, which is typically built on fear? And I think we can. And I really believe that if we are able to actually reframe how we look at this, well, there may not be any of that at all anyway. So let's begin to explore this. So we have to understand that one of the first parts of this monkey mind, which is jumping from thought to thought, never feeling calm, never feeling relaxed, never being at peace. I mean, there's a lot of people I speak to like, no, I don't like to sit down. Well, it's because you like the stimulus, right? You like to be stimulated. You like your body always moving because your mind's always moving. And then you're not what? You're not at one with your thoughts because you're always keeping yourself busy. So one of the first parts to think about is just understanding that we might actually just have too much stimuli in life. And What that means is this. We need to start to, and again, I don't want to get into the tactics just yet. I will in just about a minute, but we want to take an assessment of really what we have going on. And is it just too much? And if it is just too much, is there anything that can be let go? Maybe not forever, but for a period of time where you begin to get your thinking, your mind, and your life under control. Because you can always revisit, you can always go back to. But what the problem is, you always bring your problems to every future situation. So if you're always bringing your problems forward, every situation is going to always be the same. But if you were to meet a future situation, maybe something that you've wanted to achieve or accomplish with a different mindset, well, that outcome could then be different. You can even explore the same wellness program, the same diet program, the same exercise program, the same whatever program that you're into with a different mindset. And honestly, the outcome might be different because you're different. And people really overlook that. Again, in the de-stress protocol that I teach, 3 parts: stress, emotional perspective, and success mindset. Those 3 things are part of my 8 of how we help people heal. I mean, there's 8 parts, but 3 are tied to the mind, to the psyche. So it's extremely important that we understand that it's not just about the physical activities that we do with our life. Yes, they're important. That's what helps us to move forward in this physical-based world. But we don't get to move forward in the right way, and we don't stop sabotaging ourselves until we recreate the mindset that we need. And so what I want to do first is just start to, the first part, this is the tactics now, is just begin to observe your thoughts. That's it. And I know that it seems simple, but honestly, there's really nothing more important. And most people I teach this to, they still don't do it. They just don't, because they're like, I don't want to take the time, or I don't want to think about it, or there has to be another way. There has to be an easier way, or there has to be a more straightforward food I can eat, exercise I can do, pill I can put in my mouth, whatever it might be. But the problem is this: you're with you every minute of the day, every second of the day, and you have those 50,000 thoughts per day. Well, if the majority are negative, you're going to be stuck in the worry loop. You are going to be anxious. You're going to be stressed. There's just no other way around that, because your thoughts lead to feelings. Your feelings lead to actions. Your actions lead to outcomes. And there we have our life. But the problem is we have to go back to, what are our thoughts? Are they mainly negative? Are they mainly worry? Are they mainly just based on stress? And if so, well, what are we worried about? So here's what we need to think about. And this is how I separate it. I separate me from my thoughts. I first learned this from Deepak Chopra. Deepak Chopra learned this from Ayurvedic-based, not medicine. Ayurveda is actually 8 branches. So we learned that from the Ayurvedic yogic philosophy-based branch. But I don't want to get too deep into that today. I will absolutely do that on another podcast, because it's amazing how there's essentially 3 of you in your body. Yes, I know that sounds kind of strange, but you are not your thoughts, okay? Your thoughts are a part of you, but your thoughts are made up of your past. So they're made up of subconscious memories that are deep lodged inside of you from childhood, from past experiences, and much of which is simply trying to keep you safe, right? I mean, those thoughts are there to keep you on your toes, keep you safe, to make sure you stay alive. And so that's not always a bad thing. But the problem is that they've been programmed so earlier in your life, before 8 years old, that you don't even know that you are made up of 95% of our essentially psyche makeup, and how we think and how we feel is made up of these subconscious memories. Your programming system that allows you to believe you can achieve something or not achieve something, that you are healthy or you're not, that you are going to be successful in relationships or not, successful in your career or not. And again, a lot of people have overlooked this. It's one of the most important things, is starting to begin to understand that you are not necessarily those programs. Those programs are a part of your hard drive, but you can rewrite them. So yes, they're a part of you, but you are not it. I know that seems strange in the very beginning, but remember, since they can be rewritten, they are not necessarily you at the core. They are part of the programs. You can rewrite those. And again, this is not just me. I am reteaching what has always been known. This knowledge has been around since at least 10,000 years ago. We know that it's been written down starting 6,000 years ago. So what I want to share with you today is that you need to observe what those monkeys are saying, what they're asking you to do, And are they mainly positive or negative in the mind? Meaning, are the majority of your thoughts negative? And if so, you need to cut out more of the negative things that come in, which is essentially the news, the media. Trust me, you don't need to know every negative thing that's going on in the news. It'd be great if there were more positive things in the news, but we know that negative sells, which is why the media talks about negativity. And every once in a while, there would be one positive thing, and people are like, no, they talked about this. Yes, maybe 10% of the time. Maybe 1 out of 10 stories maximum. But negative things keep your mind tuned in. Why? Because they protect you from danger. So our minds are programmed. The limbic part of the brain is programmed to tune into the negative because the negative is what to watch out for. The negative will keep us hopefully safe, okay? But the media knows that if positive stories sold, well then, they would certainly be talking about that every night on the news because their job is just to sell advertising. So we have to be careful about our input, careful about what we read on social media, careful about what we watch on TV, careful with all of the friends and other people that we have input as well. People overlook that. They're like, yeah, but that's my friend and those are my kids' friends or whatever it might be. Yes, I agree, but be careful. Be careful. So if you're around those people, I get it and I understand. And yes, I don't think that you should isolate yourself from others, but you might need to take a sabbatical. And I did a Mindset and Motivation Monday on that as well. You take a little time away to get your mind right. And then when you're around that, well, then it doesn't permeate your thinking, your being to the same degree because your mind is stronger and it doesn't absorb that. You know why? Because there's now what's called a cognitive dissonance. Like your mindset is positive, your mindset is strong. So when you hear those things, well, you don't absorb them like you would a kid. Kids absorb that. That's why you have to be more careful with your kids under 8 years old because they're absorbing. As an adult, you can say, no, this doesn't fit with my worldview, so I'm not going to accept it, right? So that's a nice thing, but you have to get your mind there first. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing is you do have to understand is that you are in control. It may not seem that way. You said, how do I control my thoughts? Well, for sure. When you're first asking that question, you're not in control of your thoughts. There's no doubt about it. And I agree. I was there myself. And again, I don't think that you ever fully master it. I think you have thoughts that you don't want to. At least I do. Maybe I just haven't mastered it. But, I continue to work at it. And I do see progress each and every year so that this year feels better than last year. And last year felt way better than it did the year before and so on and so forth. But you have to understand is that you are in control. And that when you begin to understand that you can rewrite these programs, that you can have new thoughts and think different things, you have to understand like this is an amazing opportunity for you because if you're thinking different thoughts and if you're feeling different feelings, they're going to lead to different actions. And if you take a different action and it's in a more positive direction, your future is going to be bright. There's just no doubt about that. You do negative things, you stay in a negative loop, the future is going to be pretty much negative. It's not difficult to predict that future. It may stay the same and that might be okay. You stay within your comfort zone. But if you want a brighter future, you have to think different thoughts and you have to feel different feelings. If not, you just simply aren't excited enough to take different actions, right? And those different actions, they can't just be done once. They need to be done day in and day out. And that is how we lead ourselves to a much more predictable future in a positive way. And that's a great thing. So first, we just have to understand, we have to be aware of our thoughts. We next have to believe that we are in control, that maybe not today, but that we can get there, that we will begin to fix these monkeys from being so negative, being so worried, being so stressed, and always worried about the past and then anxious about the future. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to first go back. I want you to think about your breath. Because the first thing that people have to realize is that when you're stressed, for the most part, you stop breathing or you breathe very shallow or you don't breathe into the deeper diaphragm or into the belly, right? So you want to start to think about that. You want to just catch yourself. Oh, I'm worried right now. What do? All I want you to do is this. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. And I only want you to do that 5 times. That's all I need to do, 5 breaths. So when you're stressed, all I want you to do is this. Just take a second right now. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Try to make the exhale just a little bit longer if you can. If not, don't worry about it right now. All I want you to do is breathe. If you can make your belly rise a little bit when you're breathing and not just raise your shoulders and your chest, even better. But right now, when you're stressed, just go back to the breath. I'll be talking more about the best breathing techniques in the future, exploring different ones. But all I want you to do is take 5 breaths. That's it. For my daughters, we do 3. Because they can handle 3, but 5 breaths when you're stressed. And we do it with them as well. And it works. But now we need to do that as adults too. Once you just start to be aware, okay, observe the thoughts, understand you're in control, go back to your breath when stressed, I want you to work in some meditation. I know meditation, not a lot of people like to do it. Just pick an anchoring point. So what I'm trying to teach others to do as well is just pick one time of the day for now. Twice is great, but one time of the day where you can do 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you get a gold star. So here's the thing. When can you do it? It might not work for you when you're at home because you've got a lot of distractions, and that just might not work. Maybe you don't want to do it when you first wake up. It's a great time to do it, but maybe you don't want to. So what if you did it if you're in a quiet space at work where you can just kind of turn your chair around, maybe away from others or whatever it might be, or maybe you're working virtually like so many people are, that you take 5 minutes to 10 minutes. Just set a timer when you start your day. A lot of times that's when I like to do it as well. Like it's just a great time to do it. And again, we don't want to get too deep in this, but I might start doing some biofeedback with meditation and just work on my breath. Just work on my breath. That's it. I'm going to teach you a little mantra towards the end in just a moment as well. But work on your breath, work on your breathing. All you're focused on is your breath in through your nose and then either your breath out through your nose or your mouth. And all you're trying to do in this moment is quiet your thoughts. Now, you can observe the thoughts as they come in. Don't fight them and just let them move out of your head. There's plenty of time to think about them later in the day. Focus on your breath. All I want you to do, people overthink meditation. For right now, just sit quiet, okay? Sit upright. Breathe in through your nose and then out through your mouth or out through your nose. And all I want you to do that is keeping the mind calm and keeping the mind focused on the breath. Another nice little trick here is to light one candle. So keep your eyes just slightly open, stare at the flame of the candle while working on your breath. That's it. It's a beautiful 10-minute meditation if you can do that, okay? I prefer no music, just quiet. No stimulus, right? We're just trying to go no stimulus right now into the mind because we're trying to quiet the mind. Okay, next up is this. What I like to say is, I'm going to actually save that one for just a moment. A gratitude journal. This is what I would do next. Do it upon waking, do it before bed, whenever you choose to do it, but those are two great anchor points. If you can do it upon waking, that's the time. Here's why. Because you want to start the day on a positive note. You're probably starting the day thinking about, I got to go check my email, I got to get the kids to school, I've got a meeting, I've got this, I've got that. All right, great. Yes, you have to still do all of those things because you're participating in life, right? You are participating. So here's the thing. What can you be grateful for today? Just write down 2 or 3 things. You don't have to write down 10. Keep it easy. Your mind's not going to want to do it if it's more challenging. And we usually say tie it to an anchor. Again, we're teaching this with the habit loop. So basically what you want to do is you need to partner it with an anchor called habit stacking, right? I'll teach that in a future Mindset and Motivation Monday. But when you have your tea in the morning, you have your coffee in the morning, put your journal with it. Put the coffee or tea right on top of that journal. And as you're sipping the tea, just write down a couple things that you're grateful for and other things that you look forward to in the future. That's it. It can be the same every day. It can be different every day. Focus on that. Breathe while you're doing it. Enjoy, really. And then you can talk about what you're learning in your practice right now. Oh, I learned that I get stressed if this comes up. We call that the if-then, right? So if I'm running late for work, then I'm super stressed. Okay, well, what can you do to fix that? You could leave for work 15 minutes earlier. And you might say, well, I don't have the time in the morning. Okay, well, then we need to what? Make the time. Wake up 15 minutes earlier. It's not what you want to do, but that was a game changer in my life. I started waking up, instead of just 20 minutes before I had to leave the house, I started waking up an hour before I had to leave the house. I had more time in the beginning than I knew what to do with. And then, of course, time always fills itself with something, right? So then I started to create my morning routine. But I left for work then earlier. So I didn't need to run for the train, which I used to do. I didn't need to drive faster, any of those things. It can be a game changer for you as well. All right, the next thing is whenever you're feeling that the monkey mind and it's saying, like this is going to go wrong, this is going to go wrong, take one action. Do one thing that you can do that would help to mitigate that. We call this action beats anxiety. Action beats anxiety every single day of the week. Every single day of the week. Why? Because now you're an active participant in your life. You're saying, hey, I might not have it all figured out, but I'm moving towards a better outcome. And action beats anxiety all the time. I'm telling you, I always go back to it. I love sharing it. You probably heard it 100 times now on the podcast, but the Amish-based prayer, right? As you pray, move your feet. I love that. As you pray, move your feet. Okay, I'm going to give you one more to do, and that is choose a mantra. Choose a mantra whenever you're trying to quiet the mind and it just won't be quiet, right? You're trying to sit down and meditate, but you've got 1,000 thoughts in your mind. Well, as you're breathing in, I want you to say, I am. And as you're exhaling, I want you to put a word there, all right? Whatever you are looking for. It's essentially the opposite of what you're feeling. So a nice one that we typically give people is, I am peace. I am peace. Or I am at peace. However you want to think about it and say. And again, these are said inside of the mind. No need to say it aloud. Work with your breath instead. But you could say, I am strong if you're feeling weak. I am peace. I am happiness. I am joy. I am playfulness. If you're always stressed, if you're always anxious, right? I am playful, right? I am playfulness. Now, it might seem a little ridiculous in the beginning, but here's the thing. You need to override these negative thoughts, and they have to be with a positive one. And you have to repeat it over and over and over, which is why it becomes part of your mantra. So if you begin to implement these specific tips, starting with first observing the monkey mind. What is it saying? What's it asking you to do? Why is it so negative? What are the thoughts it's typically having? And then realizing, hey, it's not you. Those are your thoughts. We can begin to change those. We are in control. If we start to then go towards our breath, we begin to meditate. We begin to give gratitude, and we work on our mantra for us. We will begin to see that life really can be all that we want it to be. So don't give up those hopes. Don't give up those dreams. Don't give up your aspirations. You can do it. Thank you so much for tuning into today's show. I appreciate you. And as always, if this show was helpful, please do feel free to share it with anyone else you believe it could serve. Before you go, I wanted to ask you this question. What if I could teach you in just a couple of hours how to transform your thyroid, hormones, adrenal, cholesterol, blood pressure, blood sugar, weight loss, energy, mood, brain, pregnancy, anti-aging, or many other health-related issues? After 20 years in private practice, after seeing and overseeing 250,000 client appointments, I sincerely feel I have the real-world data and have found the answer you've been searching for. So what I've done is spent hundreds of hours of my own time refining what you need to know in order to uncover your underlying root cause health issues and then begin to rebalance the body and bring it back to a state of robust health and wellness. I'm going to teach you exactly what I do in my private practice so you can understand how you got here and now what you need to do in order to heal. You'll receive all of the important success checklists, protocols, and even ways to customize it to make the program fit your busy life. And you'll get all of this at a fraction of the price. Let me save you the time, money, energy, stress, and frustration of not knowing what to do next. Instead of reading dozens of books on the topic and seeing multiple practitioners, I will condense everything that you need to know in just a few hours of video tutorials that you can watch and listen to anywhere. Together, we will make this healing process an enjoyable one that you can take with you for the rest of your life. I wish you all of the best of health and happiness, and I hope to be able to guide you on your healing journey through my Health Results Accelerators. Simply choose the health imbalance you're currently suffering from, and by the end of today, you'll know what went wrong and how to get well again. I guarantee it. For details, head over now to stephencabral.com/courses.